over the space of a couple of days, something happened, something changed. Previously, my life had been like spinning plates. There was the health plate, the relationship plate, the financial plate, and everything seemed difficult, challenging. There was always a problem to solve. But in those moments when everything changed, it was like my life slowed down. All of a sudden, everything seemed unimportant, all those things that I'd been doing before, all the struggling, all the suffering, all the going to therapy, fixing things, fixing myself, finding answers to problems just fell away, just disappeared. It was like, I'm just left with me. And I'm like, oh. And I started to hear the birds sing, I can remember. And just feeling very present and very calm for the first time in my life, and realizing that I'm safe, I'm okay within myself. So the change happened instantaneously, or over a short period of time. It was quite mind-bending, because I'd really spent my whole life thinking that change was hard work and difficult, and finding answers and solutions took time and took a lot of effort. But actually this had happened instantaneously. Everything had changed. And the maximum period of time was a couple of days, that was it. And over this couple of days, I questioned everything about my life. And my early childhood was quite, I can't think of a good word, but it was tragic and challenging for everyone, including me. And my dad was killed when I was young. And from there, it was like everything turned very messy. Nobody really knew what to do. Who knows what to do with grief anyway? I turned to food. My mum did the best she could to cope. Food was my escape from myself. And from there, it just led into crime, chaos, stealing things, stealing money from home, stealing from cars, from houses, from everywhere, doing everything I could to get away from myself, to escape myself. Which led to drugs and led to multiple occasions in the psychiatric system, being medicated at a very early age, at just 10 years old, because I was depressed apparently, but nobody really mentioned grief at that time. So from there I went on into chaos, into drug addiction, into escapism, into more major crime, more major drugs, and more escape from myself in anything I could to be oblivious and live that life of crime. And then prisons and psychiatric sectioning and institutions in my teenage years, to the point where I got clean from drugs and alcohol at 23 years old. But I just adopted a new belief. I was told when I was in, I went to rehab, I was vulnerable, I was desperate. Someone told me I had a disease, I believed them, I took it as gospel. And I lived my life that way. I went to 12-step meetings for more than 22, 23 years, and told the story of myself as if I knew. I'm Jason, I'm an addict. And I just kept repeating that without ever questioning what it was or why I was saying it. I just believed it was true because someone had told me. Someone who was more qualified than me had told me what was wrong with me, and I'd taken that belief and I'd spent my whole life with it, trying to fix myself, trying to fix a broken me. Throughout my recovery, I started off training as a psychotherapist because I really thought it would help. I started off training as a counselor before a psychotherapist, then a psychotherapist, then in NLP and CBT and different modalities of change, really because I was desperate to find freedom for myself. People at meetings just used to say to me, oh, you've got other problems, you've got other things, you need to get therapy, you need a psychiatrist, you need these other people to help you. So I was in that loop of trained as a psychotherapist, and then in multiple modalities as a therapist and a counselor and NLP and other different modalities. And meanwhile, I was doing spiritual retreats. I was doing the Hoffman process, the Landmark Forum, silent meditations, anything. I did Tony Robbins, I did all Tony Robbins events, and I still didn't find freedom. So I was, in some part of me was resigned. It was resigned to always suffer. It was going, this is me, this is my life. I'd been to multiple 12-step fellowships. I'd been to multiple 12-step fellowships at once. I tried everything. And So there was part of me longing, like feeling like there must be a place of peace. There must be something more than this. And there was another part of me that was resigned, just given up, that this is how life is going to be. There was no real huge event, but I think there was more like a divine intervention, life guiding me towards myself, to be in a place and a time where I had the experience that I talked about, where I had the experience of seeing beyond myself, of seeing something bigger in life, of seeing that I am a creation of my own mind and that I don't need to suffer, that those things that had happened to me were not happening now. I think I had a longing in my heart for freedom. I just didn't know what it was. I had the feeling, the compulsion, the inner urge to get something new, to find something new. I just didn't realize that that longing was for myself, was to connect to my own heart, was to come back to myself. I didn't realize that. And it just feels like longing. And that's why we all pick things up outside of ourselves: cars, houses, money, relationship, weight loss, everything. You know, it's all about escaping and finding, you know, and that's what it is: escaping pain and the longing for home, the experience of ourself. And that's really what kept guiding me. And I'm so glad that I never gave up on myself, that I never gave up in to understand what that longing was that was inside of me. When I had the initial realization over those 2 days, I knew everything was different. I started to call my life like a game of dominoes, that everywhere I looked, it was like they were all falling. And what was falling was the created structures that I'd created, because I'd seen through belief. I'd seen that my life was a construct of beliefs of my own mind based on the adversity that I'd faced in my early life. I'd seen through that. I'd seen that that happened inside of me, but I'm not that. So I started looking, and everywhere I looked, every place I looked, well, what if that's not true? Or what if that's not true? What if that's not true? What if I don't need therapy? What if I don't need meetings? What if I'm not an addict? It came to me like that, you know, and I was like, that's true. It's not true. I'm not that. That's not who I am. So all these areas of my life started to fall away to a point of feeling like I'm free. I'm okay. I'm free, you know. There was a consistent flow of insights, of seeing new things, of seeing new stuff. Like as life would do its thing and I would be in it, in the flow of life, but I would have realizations. I would be like, oh, look at that. I could see, you know, like people would come along and I'd see that I'd instantly took dislikings to, and I'd see that I was in relationship to the story in my own mind, not in the relationship to the person. So then I could free myself of that angst that I felt towards other people. This happened in so many areas. This is just a small snippet, but it was just like an awakening, a realization that all the stuff that I'd built my life upon was not true. So there was a huge realization that all this stuff around my life, I'd held a story about, right? So as life was doing its thing and showing me people and places and things, and I was starting to see where I was in relationship to myself, not in relationship to actually to life, I saw that I was also part of that creation. And that's a huge thing. I mean, that is mind-bending, mind-blowing to see for yourself. Like, oh, like who am I then? You know, because I'm not this fixed entity, this broken, flawed, damaged character that's a sum accumulation of all the things that's happened in the past or all my beliefs. None of those things are true. They're all fabrications. So I'm left with myself. Who am I then? You know, and that was the biggest realization, the biggest part of that journey, was to see that, like, to question that, to go inwardly to myself. Who am I? To know myself. Because I'd never known myself. I'd never been interested to know who I am beyond all these stories. So in that journey, I started to realize that I can't be broken. There can't be anything wrong with me. It's not possible that that's true, because I was thinking about all the ideas of brokenness, all the suggestive stuff that I'd been involved in brokenness. Like, okay, you've got a disease, that's one of them, or you've got this label from the psychiatrist, you've got depression, you've got substance use disorder. So where had all these ideas of brokenness come to me from? Where's the word eating disorder? Was I born knowing the word eating disorder? No. So then someone had taught it to me. Then did the word by itself represent the eating disorder? No, it was the behavior that I was doing that was labeled. So I started to see the creation of the idea of brokenness was given to me, and it wasn't mine. And that was true for all the beliefs that I had about people, about life. There were fabrications of my own mind in service of protection, and the ones that I took on from other people was fabrications of their own learning, that they'd given to me that I'd innocently took on. So I was left with the question still, who am I? Like, what's left? After these installations that people had given me, what's left? Who am I? So I got to this point where I was in the midst of these realizations. I was looking at trauma, my own body, my own somatic system, my spiritual awakening, my realizations. And like, somebody asked me, what's happened to you? Because they saw that I changed. So to me, that was like as I see it today, it was a divine intervention from life to ask me to share something with the world. It was never my intention to write a book about my life or to create something to help people. And in fact, that was the last thing that I had really aspired to, But like, as it was this invitation, someone said, could you do this for other people? And I thought, well, yeah, I could. So I went away and I created this quick little workbook and ideas and so on to try and point people to what I'd seen. And it wasn't accepted. People looked at it and they couldn't understand, because it's quite an abstract realization that happened sometimes. And I didn't know so well how to point to it then as I do now. So that's where Infinite Recovery was born from an invitation to help people in the world through what someone else saw in me. So after these realizations and questioning of myself, it's like I thought, there's so much for people to see. There's so much more beauty in life. There's so much more aliveness to be had. I mean, most people just want to stop something. Even people in recovery, they just want to stop something. Yeah, I'm clean, but if I could just have enough money in the bank, if I could just lose this weight, if I could just get the right relationship, if I could just find the right job. One of these things, is true for almost every person in recovery. There's so much more than that. There's so much more than just stopping. There's so much more beauty and so much more connection, and everything we've ever searched for outside of ourselves, you can have. You can get connected to that within yourself, and you can have beautiful relationships, connections, aliveness, and not just the longing to change a job or to lose some weight. It's kind of like that just comes from that yearning inside of yourself. So if people really understood what addiction was and was willing to go on that journey to themselves, to know themselves, was curious. And I think everyone has a natural inbuilt curiosity to know themselves. But then there's the fear, because then there's all the installation of the ideas of what's wrong with you and so on and stuff like that. So it's really looking that way towards what's right with you instead of what's wrong with you. So this whole journey that I've been on from complete childhood trauma through to devastation, through to addiction, through the psychiatric system, through the traditional rehabilitation system, training as a therapist, being a professional on the other side of the fence at the same time as being a service user and so on, has brought me to this place where, I've had to go on this journey to myself. There's absolutely no choice for me. I can't sit with other people not being willing to know myself. And that means doing the difficult, risky, challenging, cathartic stuff of getting to know myself, of being in relationship and staying in relationship to another, and feeling and knowing my own heart and taking down the walls that I built up around my heart to connection, because that's what we all do. When we grow up in an unsafe environment, we build safety within ourselves. It's a natural, intelligent system, the body-mind. And that's what I did. I built safety, so I had to start undoing that safety and be willing to be raw and to be present in life with other people and to go on that healing journey to myself, where I can say that I know myself and I can be present with myself and I can feel myself. I'm connected to my body. I'm not disembodied as I was when I was going to 12-step meetings. My own relationships after this, doing this work and being part of this process and creating infinite recovery, have changed unrecognizably. Like the closeness, the connection that I have with people, the presence that I feel in myself and with others, the relationship with clients, all those relationships, my relationship with my own children, my curiosity about them rather than my sternness and my own conditioning, being projected onto them, is completely different. And a lot of relationships dropped away because they weren't really that valuable. They weren't really people that wanted to be present or to know themselves. It's the same as everyone. When you get into recovery, part of your relationships will fall away because they're invested in you being a certain way. So particularly, allowing my own heart to be seen, allowing myself to be felt, to be present with other people, made such a difference to the quality and the depth of my own relationships. It was an ongoing process. I had to learn that you didn't have to earn love. You didn't have to... Self-worth was not something you got from the things you did. It was who you are. It was part of your relationship with yourself. It was not an external thing. And you couldn't get love from a relationship unless you knew yourself. So I'd had to unlearn all those safety mechanisms that I'd had around myself as a way of protecting myself. And I'd had to allow myself to be loved and not to protect and not to push away and not to withdraw and so on. It was a challenge to be myself and to be in relationship to others that are vulnerable, that are frightened, that are insecure and scared. And it feels very human, and I'm not scared to say that. I don't sit here on a pedestal as if I'm healed, because I believe the journey is healing. The journey is to ourselves. We never arrive. And that's the lifelong realization and constant process of connecting to ourselves. There's been a huge spiritual aspect to my journey, because the realization is it's the spiritual awakening. It's the awakening of the spirit. That's the realization that I'm not this creation. I'm not this indoctrination. I'm not these thoughts, these beliefs, this brokenness that other people have given to me. Then who am I? That's a very spiritual question. Who am I beyond this human creation? I mean, I'm still a human being having a human experience, but I'm beyond that. There's more to me than that. There's more to everyone than that. I've seen this happen to multiple people where they've had a realization of their own mind, see that they're a creation of their own mind, and finding an immense sense of freedom from that realization. So the healing journey is part spiritual, part somatic. It's like it's what I call the dance between the absolute and the relative. It's the journey to myself and knowing myself from a spiritual perspective beyond the creation. And it's also the somatic healing, the being with the trauma responses and the nervous system, doing the nervous system work, myself as a relative human being, having a human experience. So writing the book came from that inspiration of being asked, being invited by life, and then being left with it because they didn't want it. So it was really like, what can I do with this program that I've created? Can I put it out into the world? Can I turn it into something? Can I make something of it? And it's been a challenging journey because I have been changing in the process of writing my book. And what I see about healing has changed because I'm constantly doing my own work and in processes myself. So I wrote the book, and then when I was in one particular understanding, one spiritual understanding, and then I saw it completely differently, so I changed it, So it's been along with me. The book is really the story of my life, what I went through, what I found, what I did that wasn't true, what wasn't useful, what wasn't helpful, why it wasn't helpful, what is helpful, what addiction really is, and how do we find true respite, peace from it. Seeing that addiction is an intelligent, adaptive response to early life adversity was the This is the place I came to after my realizations, you know, that it was, because when I'm left with, it's not a disease, that's not true, that's an installation, it's not a pathology, whatever the psychiatrist had told me, substance use disorder, then what is it? What am I left with? How do I explain? Because the mind, the thinking mind, the intellectual mind wants to know answers to everything. So most of us have this why. Why me? Why is it? What happened to me? What is it about me? What is it? What is it really? What is addiction? So the realization that it's an adaptive intelligence, that it's a response to early life adversity, because my biological organism as a human body is wired for safety. So I want to find safety and I want to find escape from pain. I don't care about the consequences of it. So the intelligence of my system, when it's in inner turmoil, finds a way to get ease and comfort, to escape from the inner struggle. So it doesn't matter that escape is drugs, because you could say that that's not very intelligent, but that's intellectual knowledge intelligent. That's not body, mind, biology intelligent. And what I'm talking about is we are an intelligent organism that will find respite from our inner turmoil. So that was what it was. Addiction was an intelligent adaptive response to my early life adversity. Life today it's not filled with practices that that I have to do in order to be okay. But I might do them if I feel like it. It's filled with freedom. It's filled with being able to be myself. It's filled with curiosity about myself, about my reactions, what happens to me in my inner world in relationship to my life, to people, to things that I do. So from that place, I feel very free. You know, I'm joyful, I'm happy, I'm content. I don't have any addictions. I don't have any secret, shameful stuff going on to cope with my life, because my life is already good. And that's the journey that I want to help people go on, to having a good life where they don't need to escape themselves, because I have found that freedom, and that's what I really want to pass on. Life really is unknown. And most of us are fearful of the unknown, but you don't actually realize that actually it's always unknown. There's only an illusion of certainty. Like in our mind, we create the conditions for certainty. If I keep going to this job, if I keep putting into this relationship the way it is, then tomorrow it'll be like it is today, and the next day it'll be like it is today, and so on. That's not actually true. We don't know what's going to happen tomorrow. Life is uncertain. So being able to live in that uncertainty with actual excitement rather than terror is completely different, because actually the unknown is exciting, because good things can happen, not just bad things. And when you realize that you're not weighed down by the fabrication and delusion of your own mind about what the world is, then you live life completely differently. You embrace the moment more, you embrace yourself more, your reactions, and you allow your humanity too, without judgment, without the shame and criticism and all the ideas that other people have given to you. So this is what I'm inviting people to, you know, into going on this journey for themselves, the journey inwardly to themselves, the journey to know themselves. Not my journey, not everything that I'm saying. I'm not telling you what to do or how to be. I'm pointing you back inwardly to yourself so you can find out what's going on for you. And that's really what the journey is in infinite recovery.